Welcome to the Around the Republic podcast. I'm your host, Brian Nichols, Associate Editor at the Libertarian Republic. And today I am joined by a Liberty hero. I got the TLR Contributor Paul Meekin. What's up, man?
How's it going, sir?
Oh, it's going. It's a beautiful Wednesday. Happy hump day to you.
Oh, thank you. I got out of work early. I got to go to Chicago's super secret screening room and see Megan Levy early, which is pretty much the Hurt Locker meets puppy dogs. It's adorable, and I definitely wasn't crying for the entire third act. Absolutely not. No crying for me. Not one little bit. Nope.
The Hurt Locker meets puppy dogs?
Yeah, so Megan Levy was she did bomb disposal with a dog. So, the Hurt Locker guy would show up and dispose of the bomb. This is the person who would find where the bombs are, and they use dogs to do that because I guess dogs can smell bombs, obviously.
Right.
And she did 2 tours of duty and then ended up getting injured. The dog ended up getting injured. And then she ended up having to petition Chuck Schumer, of all people, to be allowed to adopt the dog in its final years of life. And it's
wait. This is the one with the lady from House of Cards, right?
It sure is, and it's excellent. She's great in it. And what's so weird is this movie's coming out it's out now in Chicago, and it's coming out literally a day before Wonder Woman. And I'm sure Wonder Woman's going to get all the press about being a movie for little girls to look up to. I'm like, nah, Megan Levy's the movie to look up to. No one can be a fucking Amazonian superhero, not a single person. It's a fictional character. We can be Megan Levy. You can be a Marine, and you can fight for your country, and you can find a sense of purpose and duty. So it's just weird that here's a movie that's about a real thing that happened that everyone can look up to, and instead, we all do, and we're focusing on heavily muscled people punching each other in the name of fighting the bad guys. I think it's World War I. So
it's so funny because before we started the pod today, we were talking off air about what's going on in the world today, and I was mentioning how House of Cards came out yesterday, which, I'm sorry, was just absolutely horrible timing because I had all weekend off, and I would have loved to binge watch the entire season, but alas, I only got 3 episodes in last night. But really, for what's her name? What's her name? Plays Megan Levy?
Kate Mara.
Yeah, Kate Mara. That she started in House of Cards, and that was her big break. Because in House of Cards, for those of you playing along in the home game, she was essentially the DC insider who was working to get info from Frank Underwood when he was a congressman at the beginning of the series. And I'm not going to make any spoilers, though I probably could be able to, because at this point that season's 4 years old. No, she really got her big break there, and then she went on to what was it, The Martian? Is that the one she went on to there with Matt Damon? She had that role, and now here she is in this new movie here with the German Shepherd dog, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Did you get the chance to watch any of the House of Cards yet, or have you gotten into House of Cards too much?
I haven't seen the new season. I'm caught up all the way up to the new season. I got into it a couple of weeks ago, and what had happened was I was told that the first season is one of the best seasons of television ever.
That's phenomenal.
And then afterwards it falls off a cliff. That's what I was told.
No.
And the second season is bad compared to the first, but the third and the fourth seasons redeem it immediately. The second season didn't really have a shape to it. The plan for what was going to happen didn't really come together toward the end. Whereas in the first season, you could see all the gears in motion moving forward toward this ultimate outcome. And the same with season 3 was about, grace under pressure in a way. Because here's Frank. He has achieved a level of success. I won't say what it is. And he's actually crumbling under that weight. He has everything he wants, and he's unable to do anything with it.
Now, see, I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree about season 2. And I'm going to use the Star Wars argument in terms of... Okay. Episode 1 and Episode 2 got so much criticism because they weren't the action-packed Star Wars that people came to know and love. They had a terrible character in Jar Jar Binks. They had a whiny little bitchy Anakin, which everybody kind of unanimously despised. But at the same point in time, it established so many fundamental storylines that we needed to learn in order to understand and really make sense of what happens in the later movies. So here we are, and I'm not gonna say what I've already watched in the first 3 episodes of this season, but I'm seeing things. I'm like, oh my god, that was from season 2, and it makes sense now. So I kind of look at people who make these films and make these television shows that are, I mean, they're better than movies in my opinion in most cases. And I really think that they have like this underlying goal that they have already plotted out, and then they're just kind of taking this and utilizing what they've planted in these seeds throughout the series, and all of a sudden they like sprout into these beautiful little rose bushes down as we go further and further. But we're getting a little off track here, and we gotta keep going because we have some important stuff to talk about today. Not really that important, but it's interesting nonetheless. But really quick, a really great big thank you to you listeners out there for joining us for this week's podcast. And just to kind of fill you in, the Around the Republic podcast, we're a part of former Libertarian presidential candidate Austin Peterson's Libertarian Republic Empire. So if you enjoyed today's podcast, please hit that like button and subscribe and share the podcast. Also, we will be, after today's episode, here's a nice breaking news for all you guys, we will be uploading the podcasts from the past about 5 episodes or so, including my interview with Super Mexican, to all podcast streaming apps. So if you have Stitcher or SoundHound or iTunes, you'll be able to download the podcasts to go. So that'll be great. But if you're interested in what you're hearing, if you are a proponent of liberty, I also cannot stress enough to go ahead and check out Austin Peterson's podcast, The Freedom Report. And if you do that, just give him a little note and say, hey, Brian and Paul sent you to go check him out from the Around the Republic podcast. And also, if you like what we're saying, feel free to give us a follow on Twitter, give us a like, give us a retweet every now and then. You can find me at B Nichols Liberty, and you can find Paul at Meekin on Movies. We good?
Yeah, we good.
We good. Awesome. All right, and going full circle back to, I mentioned Austin's podcast that he has there, The Freedom Report. Today, Austin really got into discussing one of the bigger, I don't even know what to call it. It's a hybrid of art and pop culture and politics altogether, and that is what is happening with Kathy Griffin, who is as she describes herself, a D-list comedian. To kind of give you guys a Spark Notes version of what Kathy did. So Kathy Griffin decided to do what she considered to be an art project, air quotes, in which she took I guess like a mannequin head that was made to look like that of Donald Trump, covered it in fake blood, and then held it up to the screen as if she was holding a severed head, to which there was outcry from not only those on the right, but several of those on the left as well, because people are saying that this is tasteless, this is disgusting. That you look at what happened with Republicans back under the Obama administration, when they would wear masks that were Obama, that weren't nearly as graphic as what Kathy Griffin had, and they were being called racist and saying to respect the president. And now you have Kathy Griffin doing this, where she's literally showing the sitting president of the United States in a manner that basically depicts him as being decapitated. Now, Paul, you wrote a banger of an article on the Libertarian Republic, in which the article was read about Kathy Griffin, You're Not Alone. So, Paul, give me kind of like your synopsis of this article, and kind of give me your perspective as a guy who really, you look at art, heck, your Twitter name is Meekin on Movies. You really get into looking at the artistic value behind these kind of things. So what's your perspective on what's happening with Kathy Griffin, and again, summarizing your article that you wrote pertaining to what was going on today?
Sure. So, in the interest of full disclosure, I have had a celebrity crush on Kathy Griffith since she dated Steve Wozniak for a little bit back in the day.
Is it Griffith or Griffin?
Griffith. I get them confused. Kathy Griffith is the one from
Whose Line, right?
Yeah, or Live with Regis, and that's Kathy Lee Griffith. And then there's one from News Radio too. Kathy Griffin.
Wait,
when she was on.
Kathy Griffin was on Whose Line Is It Anyway, right? Like she had like a cameo here and there.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's been a
okay.
comedian for forever. And when she was on Life on the D List, she dated Steve Wozniak, who's the guy who programmed the Apple II computer.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh well, if he has a chance, I have one too, said Paul, 17 years old. So anyway, yeah. So what happened was, is she was doing this art project with this photographer, Steve something. He's Hollywood's favorite photographer. He's a very provocative photographer. Takes a lot of famous people's photos, and it looks like he was doing some sort of project here. Got Kathy Griffin involved. And prior to this, her most recent claim to fame was, I think it was pushing the porta potty or the some sort of portable toilet for ladies so they can go to the
Yeah.
bathroom wherever they want. Um, so yeah, then this video broke of her holding up a severed Trump head, and the internet goes crazy, as they're prone to do. And like I get it. My big thing is like, as a writer, and like I can consider myself more of a writer than a journalist. So like when I write about something like this, I'm always coming to it from like a creative perspective. And the big concern with something like this is, like, obviously you can cross the line, but I'm not sure if I like being in the business of firing people, or throwing people through the mud for their proverbial art. And on top of that, like, what people are saying is, oh well, when Barack Obama was in office and this stuff happened, there was a bunch of outrage. So where is it here? And eventually we got to it. But the thing to consider is, say what you will about President Barack Obama's policies, hearing him speak, hearing him talk to people, he was a pretty even keeled guy. He was very stately, an eloquent speaker, I would say, really good on, like, Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon or these shows he would be on. He was cool, and he was black. So it became very difficult to make fun of him without being called a racist. So a white guy just wearing a Barack Obama mask could be considered racist. I got in a little bit of trouble for this on Halloween in college a few years ago. I was dressed as Al Borland, right? I had like the flannel shirt, tool belt, and then someone else had a Barack Obama mask. I put on the Barack Obama mask, and all of a sudden I was Barack Al Borland. And a couple of people got offended by him. Like, it's just a joke. So now that we have a president that's white, a bore, rude, cruel to everybody he has a problem with, the gloves are off, and all. And this 8 years of not being able to make fun of a president's physical appearance outside of his age, it's almost like an atomic explosion of just vitriol and rage and jokes, as we can finally do it again.
Well, I mean,
So,
let me guess.
here.
I gotta ask the question. So, like, my concern is, where's the line? So let's rewind back to 2008 through 2015. You're right. There was a pretty strong resistance from a lot of voices on the left saying you can't make fun of President Obama because of the things you just listed. And really, it did come down to predominantly his race.
Yeah.
However, now it's those same voices who were defending President Obama and silencing those voices from being outrageous, being bombastic in what their depictions of him were. I mean, people would draw him with pictures of big ears, and that was borderline racist there. But now we have someone like Kathy Griffin, who is literally showing a sitting president in the means of being decapitated. Like, now, I'm not trying to compare the two, but like a comedian slash political commentator like Steven Crowder, he made a joke that people interpreted to be promoting rape culture. And there were people on the left who went ballistic. But then, how can we defend something that Kathy Griffin does when it literally, I mean, it's not even up for interpretation. It's like she is holding a dude's head with blood dripping off it. Like
The president's head. Yeah.
Exactly. Like there's no way to really beat around what this is trying to depict. So I'm looking at it I come from a very social conservative area in New York State, where you do try to have some form of decency, and at the same time, people want to have decency, but they also are very, very aware of blatant hypocrisy. So when they see those in the left, like a Kathy Griffin, who have spent 8 years saying you can't say anything about our president because X, Y, Z, now literally going a complete 180 just because the person they don't like is now in the office. I mean, how can we grapple with the reality that they basically become complete and utter hypocrites?
I mean, with that, the tricky part is like from what I've read, I can't remember where I read it. Like the worst way to get your way is to call someone a hypocrite because everyone's hypocritical at their core. Everyone has their beliefs, but then when it comes face to face with them, beliefs are just beliefs. They're not actions. That said, I think like the whole reason I am writing for the Libertarian Republic is I was sick to death of liberal thought police and social justice warriors telling me what to think, what I can't say, what's offensive, what's not. And like, do you remember a bunch of years ago, Hank Williams went on Fox? Williams, country music
Yes.
singer,
Yep.
singer of the country music song "The F Word," singer of "Let's Get Ready for Some Football." He compared Barack Obama to Hitler. Oh my
Right.
God! Oh my God! What an offensive thing! How
I
fucking
mean,
could they?
Paul, we couldn't even say the word socialist in 2008 to describe Obama's policies
Yeah.
without being told that that was a trigger, or what's the word, a dog whistle word to be racist. And
Exactly.
like that's that hypersensitivity that people are like, okay, you went after us for 8 years, and you're actually depicting a literal example of a sitting president's head being decapitated with blood dripping off it.
Oh yeah, this is far worse. And like I completely get like the outrage about it. Like this is not a good look at all. And I don't know what they were thinking. But when it comes to like decency, the thing is like the way I always figure it, you're gonna get criticism about tenfold back to what you give out. So like, George W. Bush can't pronounce nuclear. Everyone's saying he can't read, even though he went to Yale, right?
Yeah.
Barack Obama has some socialist policies. He is a socialist. Donald Trump, he said all these abhorrent and awful things that lowered the bar of political discourse so low that you're going to trip over the thing if you're not paying attention. So the magnification of that you will get from comedians or actors who are an inherently interpretive and exaggerational people. I think I just made up a word. It's going
Hey,
to
it
be
works.
whatever Donald Trump is times 10. And when Donald Trump is calling violence and saying we should get Second Amendment people on Hillary Clinton, and this kind of shit comes out, I'm like, what did Donald Trump expect? Now, that said, I do think what we need more than anything else in society right now is for someone, hopefully most people, to kind of step up and be the bigger man, and in the figurative sense of the word.
Right.
Someone to say, okay, Donald Trump went this far. I am going to act in a way he never could, and be stately and respectful, and discuss his policies in a way that are constructive. I may make fun of him, sure, but I'm not going to, call his child barren, someone with mental disabilities. Like that came out when I think Rosie O'Donnell mentioned it, and that was a big controversy, although it was just a question. She was excited for it because I guess she has a kid that has developmental disabilities. I'm like, oh, that could be a cool moment if it were true. But it turned into a controversy. She apologized. So now here we are at Kathy Griffin, and holding up a severed Trump head, and like people are posting her with like ISIS holding up severed heads, and it's just a terrible look. And like I've seen her live, I've been a fan, but like if you put something like this out and what the political climate is going to be, you're going to get flack back. And I think what they neglected to do is understand that there is this line, this proverbial line, and the point of a comedian, a good comedian or a good artist or a good writer, is to approach that line. And if you're going to step over it, you better be damn well sure you know what you're doing.
Right.
And a 12-second video isn't enough context to say what we're doing. You don't know if that severed Trump head in that video could have been, I don't know, them saying, look at where our country's going. Donald Trump is the head of the snake or something. I don't know. My point is we don't know, so all we have is the pictures of it, and all we have is and the pictures look bad, and it makes it look like, in a way she's advocating for the death of the president. And people on Facebook are going nuts. They're talking about putting her in jail and all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know about that. I think this is probably one of the few cases in recent memory, from Pepsi commercials to, like I said, Hank Williams Jr. to all this stuff where like I'm kind of on board with the internet outrage begrudgingly. Like it sucks, but yeah, I guess she probably should lose her job at CNN. I guess she probably should be raked over the coals a little bit because this is pretty brutal.
Right.
And personally, I never ever go unless you're like, what is it, John Podesta's brother's collection of weird,
Tony Podesta, yeah.
creepy art. Like, don't ever look at that stuff on a work computer because you're gonna get in trouble. Like that kind of stuff, I have a problem with because I'm like it makes you think about the person a little bit. But even then, that's tricky because just because someone appreciates something doesn't necessarily mean they are that. Like, I can love all the movies in the world about vicious murder, or true crime stories. Doesn't mean I'm a criminal. So I can have creepy pictures of kids in my house. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm a pedophile.
Right.
I can hold up a head of a severed Donald Trump. Doesn't necessarily mean I want to kill Donald Trump. But it doesn't matter. It's how it looks.
Right. And then that's the one thing, too, is, like, there's this, I think there's this issue where people, they cannot figure out where the line is. And, Steven Crowder, like I said, he got a lot of flack for making what people interpreted to be a rape joke. But, at the same point in time, there was enough room for him to say it wasn't a rape joke. It was like me pointing out a hypocrisy or some flippant statement that somebody made and how it was so misconstrued and yada yada yada. And I think it might have been like rape apology. I'm not sure what the issue actually came down to, but like that's one thing where you leave it up to interpretation, and it's a genuine interpretation. Whereas like with what Kathy Griffin did, there's very, very little wiggle room for interpretation. There's very little wiggle room for her to try to change what the narrative is based on saying it was, metaphorical, or saying it had some superior meaning to it or ulterior meaning to it, because really that there isn't really much room to maneuver that. I mean, it's like I said, it's a severed head depicting the President of the United States covered in blood. And looking at what's happened to her since all this began, she did hold a position at CNN for their New Year's Eve celebration, whereas her and Anderson Cooper, and CNN let her go, which I wholeheartedly support, because one thing that libertarians sometimes seem to forget, and also people who look at libertarians thinking that we just want complete anarchy, it's like, no, libertarians believe in the consequences of one's actions. So for her to do something like this, she is not putting herself in a position to be free of the consequences that she's bringing upon herself for what she is trying to promote or what she is trying to do, especially when it raises such controversy. And I like to point back to those in the left who maybe are trying to defend her, saying, back in, I think it was 2013, when Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty, he was, I think it was only for 2 weeks or so, suspended from the show on A&E because he had said some derogatory or some unpopular opinion about homosexual individuals, and that led to him being suspended. And those on the left were cheering that, saying just because you are making a choice doesn't mean you're free from the consequences. So I think we have to, at the very least, apply some form of uniformity across how we are going to look at these situations, both on the left and the right, of pushing the line, and to the point that when it crosses the line, that we have equal outrage based on the scale or the severity of what's being done. So, for Kathy Griffin to show a severed head of a president, I think is a much higher scale of severity than someone wearing a Barack Obama mask in 2009.
Right.
And I think that's the issue for me personally, is that the outrage culture from the past 8 years that we're saying we can't say these certain things, now they're the ones saying these horrible things. And Kathy Griffin obviously is an outlier in the situation, but for her to do something like this, it really does raise up this narrative that the left is hypocrites, that the left only wants political correctness when it's their political correctness, which there is an ounce of truth to all that.
Yeah.
However, at the same point in time, we're setting ourselves up again into this tribalism mentality of, well, your side did something terrible, so I'm going to have my side do something terrible. And I don't think it's productive at all for a society moving forward. And I mean, what's your thoughts there on that?
I think it's a couple of things. Like what's weird here is like for a liberal to get in trouble, they have to literally cut off Donald Trump's head apparently. Like, an article I wrote a few months ago that really bugged me was, who Colin Moriarty is?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he made a tweet. He said, peace and quiet, #day without a woman. Had to quit his job, had to start his own thing, right? Because the liberal outrage was so over the top that like he wasn't gonna be able to do what he wanted to do with the company he founded without dragging everybody he worked with down with him.
I mean, there was
So
this one segment on Glenn Beck with this
Mhm.
one lady who she was flying to Africa. And,
yeah.
and this segment that he played, it broke my heart because the lady was just trying to make a stupid joke. Just a stupid joke. She had like 200 followers on Twitter. She's like, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, LOL. And then she turned her phone off to board the plane to go to Africa. And when she gets off the plane, she sees her friend text her saying, are you
my
okay? Yeah, like, oh my God, are you okay? And she's like, well, yeah, why? And then she comes to find out that not only was she being absolutely berated on social media, but she had lost her job literally from the time she left the airport in the United States to the time she arrived in Africa because of this outrage culture of what she said. Now, was it in bad taste? Yeah, I think it was in bad taste. I mean, joking about AIDS is never something that I think is a good thing. But looking at Kathy Griffin, like, I think that what she, graphically depicted is far and above worse. And I'm not trying to play this whataboutism game like, oh, well, this person did this, but like at the same point in time, we kind of have to gauge the reaction based on we have to gauge our reaction based on the actual action of what we're getting upset about. So to make sure it at the very least is measured and scalable based on how bad it really is.
Yeah, and I think what's probably going to happen is so people can insulate themselves from this is more and more you're going to see people going directly to their fan base soliciting donations, so then they're free to do whatever they want, really. That's what happened with Dave Rubin. That's what happened with Colin Moriarty.
Stephen Crowder, Philip DeFranco, all of them.
Yeah, so all these people have their Patreons, and they're people that support their voice, so they can say what they want, they can be outlandish, and they have a more direct connection to the people that put the money in their pockets. So if they do something and the world hates it, but their supporters like it, they're fine. But if they do something the supporters don't like, then they're aware and they can connect with them directly. They're like, yo, I'm sorry, please, let me know how I can make this right. And that's good in that it allows artists to do whatever they want, but it's also bad in that it's fostering that tribalism you were talking about. Someone like Steven Crowder, someone like Colin Moriarty, someone like Dave Rubin don't have to give a shit about what anybody else thinks about them ever again, except for their Patreon supporters. So It's good and bad in that regard. And I don't know. I think we need. I was hoping maybe there would be some adults in the world when I grew up, and like.
And then you realize that all of a sudden you became the adult.
And I'm like, I'm not an adult. Neither are these people that are arguing with me. And it's just baffling to me that this is what it takes to get people outraged and for someone to lose their job when it comes to like making fun of the president. But when it comes to making fun of anybody else, it's literally just words. It's literally you say the wrong series of words, or you make a Pepsi commercial where you're trying to promote peace and happiness by giving the world a Coke or a Pepsi in this case, and there's a massive outrage. You have to pull the ad and all this crazy stuff. Stupid ad didn't deserve all the outrage it got. People are just so excited to be a part of something, and now that conservatives had something they could jump on, and it was a very, very good thing to jump on in that it was brutal and gross. And then you toss in the fact that I guess Barron Trump saw it on television and it understandably upset him.
Oh my God, yeah, like that story. If that is in fact true, which I would believe it's true, like that broke my heart. Like if you were an 11-year-old child and you see someone on TV holding what appears to be your dad's severed head, like that would be traumatizing. Like my dad was in politics. He was a elected official throughout my entire childhood. And like I heard all the nasty things said because he had people that disagree with him, and that was part of the game. But like I could never imagine someone taking it to a certain extent that they would depict my dad in a manner of like showing him dead and decapitated. Like, that just, I can't fathom that. And for a kid that is 11 years old to have to see that happen, I mean, there's like I said, there's a line. I believe it was crossed. I think a lot of people do agree that it was crossed. And I pray that we can find some realm of civility going forward. But Paul, we are getting close to wrapping up here. I wanted to give you a quick 30 seconds or so. What is the one thing here? We're on a Wednesday. We're filming a day late today because of the Memorial Day weekend. What's the one thing going into this week that you're looking forward to as we get closer to the weekend?
Well, Megan Levy, which I think we talked about earlier, is coming out to theaters. And if you like puppy dogs and you like war movies and you like crying, you got to see it. It's by the documentary director who did, I think it was called Blackfish, which was all about seagulls and stuff like that. I didn't know she had this in her, and it's incredible. It's a true story, or true enough. It's got Edie Falco, Kate Mara from House of Cards, Bradley Whitford from The West Wing. And it's literally about your ability to bond with animals in a way that some people can't bond with humans, and the overwhelming power of that bond to make you a better person, or in this case, to save lives. Absolutely. And, Wonder Woman's coming out this weekend. I'm sure it's going to make all the money. Everyone's saying it's great. It's an empowering
Are you saying
movie
that it might be wonderful?
I think it will be. I'm seeing it tomorrow, and you can look forward to my review of Wonder Woman on the Libertarian Republic this Friday.
Oh, shameless plug. Look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm saying, like, if you're looking for something a little more realistic and you want to get away from what I imagine is going to be the overwhelming politicization of a superhero movie.
And no thanks to Stephen Miller, too, because he bought that whole ticket for the... It's a ticket there for the all-women showing, and then like people went crazy. I don't want to get into that, but like that was something.
There's an article about that you can read by me too. But yeah, go see Megan Levy if you can. If you want to give your kids something a little more tactile that they can latch onto, other than a lasso of truth and bulletproof bracers, and the belief that you can fly in an invisible jet.
And Captain Kirk, younger. What's his name? Chris Pine. Yeah, him. Yeah. He's there. And not Captain Kirk, but no. My final thought, definitely go into the world of make believe, but not with Mr. Rogers, but with Frank Underwood. I'm just pumped to see how the season concludes for House of Cards, because I'm a big fan. And if you haven't watched House of Cards yet, number one, what's wrong with you? And number two, you need to watch it, because you need to watch the whole series, because next week, 2 weeks, Orange is the New Black is coming out. So like, that's going to fill up my entire list of things to watch after that. No haters, please, because I will watch Orange. I will be proud to say I watch Orange. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again for this week's Around the Republic podcast. Until next time, I'm your host, Brian Nichols, signing off for Paul Meekins. We will talk to you next week. Thanks again, folks.